not to date them. I regularly receive DMs and comments from men yelling at me for being a misandrist and a man hater, and like, yeah.
The male loneliness epidemic. Now, this is a topic that has been around for a while now, and has become increasingly relevant in today's society, where even despite the constant connectivity through technology, many men still find themselves isolated and longing for more meaningful relationships. Several of the great political minds of the internet have pondered the possible causes of this phenomenon. Some believe it to be the modern woman, others believe that it's because of technology, and a few believe that it is because of the Jews. But I have stumbled upon a video by feminist LGBTQ activist, the Queer Kiwi, in which she boldly declares that the male loneliness epidemic is somehow both not real and yet simultaneously real enough to be the entire fault of men.
The male loneliness epidemic is not real. Obviously. It is a completely made up thing that men are claiming just as another way to hate women and blame all of their problems and all of their flaws on women and make it our fault so they don't have to do any reflection or any betterment of themselves. Men are the cause of their own demise. They are the reason that women don't want to date them. They have set the standard.
She has stated in the past that when she says she hates men, she is just joking. However, I think it will become clear as we make our way through this video that she isn't joking at all, which is why she feels completely comfortable in both invalidating men's loneliness while also blaming them for it at the same time. I think we will first start by going over who this individual is. Savannah, aka the Queer Kiwi, is a 25-year-old content creator who began her YouTube journey in 2019, after originally achieving success on TikTok first. We need to build a wall between TikTok and YouTube. When TikTok sends their people, they aren't sending their best. They're sending a lot of gays, frankly, a lot of gays. She has managed to grow an audience of 250,000 followers on TikTok and another 434,000 subscribers on YouTube. God, I fucking hate politics, man. Her content excels in coming across as overly pretentious. I feel she must have learned that from collaborating with pedo defender Ethan Is Online.
Like, this dude probably makes plenty of money off this shit, but he's not paying for therapy. He's not getting these guys into like a housing that's away from like anyone they could do any harm to, that has no internet. He's not doing shit, and he gets called a hero for it by hogs like Michael Knowles.
So that's what you spend your time doing, is it? Raising money for the most downtrodden people in America. Child rapists.
Did you guys see, by the way, that he changed his gender? Yeah, no one is surprised. Her channel description reads, queer as in not straight, Kiwi is in from New Zealand, but I live in London, social and political commentary, sometimes funny, always angry, and very gay.
Deal. Got a deal.
So this is the type of person that we're going to be dealing with. We've all likely met someone like this in our own lives. They aren't exactly unique or special in any way, just a basic bitch with a fresh coat of multicolored paint to distract from the lack of an authentic personality beneath. Her complete description, front to back, is that she is gay and that she is a woman. Those two traits make up her entire identity. She really gets off on believing she is more enlightened and intelligent than the rest of us, yet blindly holds the exact beliefs you would expect someone who looks like this to have. It is with almost 100% accuracy that you can look at this person and guess every opinion she holds. Go ahead, just guess a few. Yep, she hates white people. Yep, she thinks Trump is a fascist. And yep, she thinks for some reason not shaving her armpits is empowering. She is literally Lacey Green from 2016. Now, you might be wondering, what causes someone to become like this? Well, this is her mother. Her father was supposedly an alcoholic, and she was in a so-called abusive relationship. Is it all beginning to make sense yet? Hell, if she wasn't so insufferable, I might almost feel bad for her. So she starts off this video without sparing a single moment by immediately bashing men as egotistical, delusional, misogynistic, and selfish.
Men, as we know, are delusional. They're egotistical, selfish, misogynistic, and delusional, with nothing but the audacity to blame all of their flaws and problems on women. And before I start getting a ton of comments, I am obviously not talking about all men, but I am talking about enough men to be sitting around and yelling about being lonely and calling it an epidemic and making it, obviously, of course, the fault of women.
Hey genius, you already said delusional. Not off to a great start here for someone who scripts their videos. She also couldn't have cut out the second time she said delusional in post. You know, Savannah, it wouldn't be too hard to cut it out. I don't have all day. But it's okay though, because she clarifies that she is not talking about all men, only the ones that are complaining. Oh, you believe that society has encouraged women to behave in a way that has made you feel inadequate as a man? Well, just stop complaining about it. It's amazing. These people think they are empowering women by basically acting as though women do not have agency. Women cannot be criticized. They are infantilizing women. She can sit here and generalize men and say things like, obviously, when describing reoccurring patterns she recognized in what men say and do. But if men point out any reoccurring patterns with women, now that is hateful, bigoted, misogynistic, and she will use it as more justification for generalizing men. You hate on me? That's your fault. I hate on you? Well, that's also your fault. But remember, everyone, it's all these men that are the delusional and egotistical ones. Right. The next thing she does is describe what the male loneliness epidemic is, but she can't even get through her own description without trying to discredit it.
If you have not seen the conversation around the so-called male loneliness epidemic, then congratulations, you are not chronically online. But effectively, what is being stated is that men are lonely because women don't want to date them. Women don't want to sleep with them. And that is having a detrimental effect on their mental health and is spiking the male suicide rate, which is not true. There is not a spike in the male suicide rate.
Now, she is correct here. Sort of. The male self-delete rate is not spiking. However, it is in the UK 3 times higher than the female self-delete rate. And in the United States, it has been on an incline for years, and in 2022 was 4 times higher than the female self-delete rate. Yeah, Savannah, I think it's safe to say that the men aren't doing particularly well, sweetheart. Not that you give a shit anyways. Now, if this next part wasn't super important to the overall narrative of the video, I would be merciful and avoid showing all of you this because it's particularly difficult to listen to. But she really outs herself here as having zero understanding of this topic, so I have to show you.
And it is unfair that women walk around with a superiority complex, able to get any guy they want, but choose not to. They choose to avoid men and don't want to date anyone. And that is just truly so terrible. Men deserve someone to love them. They deserve someone to confide in, or more importantly, they deserve someone to have sex with. And of course, this is blamed on women because everything is always the fault of women because we are treating them like dirt, and it's unfair because we should be giving them unlimited love and sex and anything they ask for because it is what they deserve. We need to stop walking around with such a superiority complex because it is having a detrimental impact on them and their lives. So today we are going to be having a dive into what could possibly what could possibly be causing women to keep their distance from men, and what could possibly be leading to more women making the decision to not associate with men or form romantic and sexual relationships with them.
It's really funny because you would think before doing a video on a viral internet topic, you would at least want to do your research on it before yapping about it and uploading it to the internet. It seems to me like she just heard male loneliness was trending and felt the need to gloat about it. There is a study by Pew Research which is incredibly important to this conversation that for some reason, the Queer Kiwi just seems to forget to talk about. Let's be real. I know why she chose not to include it. It's because it flies in the face of the premise she will construct her entire argument on, which is that women are choosing not to date men because they are scared of them. That is just not true. 63% of young men under 30 identify as single, whereas only 34% of women under 30 identify as single. Now, unless you are of the opinion that women can just change their sexuality on a whim, only 3 possibilities could be happening here. Either the top 30% of men are dating multiple women, or women in their 20s are dating men in their 30s, or a combination of the two. Either way, it isn't that women are just choosing no longer to date men. It's that the majority of young men are being left out of the dating market. Now, why could this be? Well, for starters, men in their 30s tend to be a more attractive option to women. Men in their 30s are more likely to have a career, a house, more likely to be emotionally mature, and more likely to be able to provide for a family. Once you account for the age gap most heterosexual couples have, the gender gap among singles drops significantly. This is in large part due to women being hypergamous, which is another reality she conveniently chooses not to address, which causes women to try to date men well above their own sexual market value. A woman who is average looking is still capable of hooking up with a man who is top tier because women sleep with men that they want, men sleep with women that they can. And so these women hooking up with so-called high-value men start to believe that this is the level of men that they deserve. And once a woman hooks up with a certain caliber of man, it's less likely she will find anyone beneath that caliber attractive ever again. If a woman has been dating a guy who owns his own house, drives his own car, has a well-paying job, and has a career, do you think she's gonna give that guy who is still living at home with his parents and working an entry-level job a chance? Probably not. This phenomenon has also been exacerbated by social media because now women have access to the best-looking and highest-earning men in the country at the tips of their fingers. This leaves young men in their 20s out of the dating market almost entirely. Why would a woman date a man her age with no experience, no money, no talent, no resources, when she could date a man just a little bit older than her who has at least some, if not all of those things? This right here is the reality that young men find themselves in today, yet the Queer Kiwi is going to avoid all of what I just listed and just blame young men for being right-wing or something.
A woman tweeted, "The right-wing radicalization of high school and college-age men is truly one of the biggest crises in the US, and it nearly completely goes unaddressed." Which is true. The amount of right-wing and like red pill content that is being fed to boys and young men is terrifying, and the amount of them that like cling on to it and this like anti-woman sort of conversation and propaganda is terrifying. We are having a rise in men that just like absolutely despise women, and it's so scary, and it does need to have a conversation. It needs to have its own big conversation because it's really scary.
It's so scary. It's really scary, guys. It's so scary. Look, I know that in the aftermath of the red pill wave of 2021, the rise and fall of people like Andrew Tate, Sneeko, Fresh and Fit, the red pill stuff has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I get it. I understand. Though I can see why some people view it as a toxic ideology, I believe there is still a lot of value in it as well. I expressed this sentiment in my video on the fresh baby mama drama last year. Most of the red pill content stuff has less to do with hating women and more to do with understanding women, or at least trying to. It's what men decide to do with the knowledge that they attain that determines their own outcome. A lot of it is centered around what actually attracts women to men in the first place. And because of the harshness of reality, some men just can't handle that truth. Some men get mad at the realization that women aren't going to just love them for no reason and that they typically have to provide some sort of value to a woman's life in order to attract them, this dynamic is completely different for women. Women are born with an innate value that men do not have. They call it the sexual market value because reproduction is actually very similar to supply and demand. Women do not have the ability to produce as many offspring in her life as a man can. And that is because a woman will produce far less eggs in her life than a man will produce sperm. Also, when a woman gets pregnant, she has a downtime of 8 to 9 months, whereas a man can continue reproducing basically limitlessly. These two factors cause women to become the pursued sex and men to be the pursuers. This gives women the luxury of being very selective and demanding a higher standard of the men that they enter into relationships with. This is actually a good thing, because if men were able to get what they wanted without any effort at all, they would become docile and weak. A man's value is usually conditional on how much utility he brings to other people's lives, whereas women, children, puppies even, are the only living things that are born with an innate sense of value. However, due to the frustration of this imbalance in value, a small portion of men just drop out of the dating pool entirely because they just don't believe the juice is worth the squeeze. Other men do it because they have been discarded by a woman that they were previously in a relationship with. Either way, complaining about women is just the easier choice. This creates an echo chamber of bitterness online, made up of men that either couldn't find love or men that were hurt by a woman that they did love. These are the types of men that women often refer to as incels. However, on the flip side, a deeper understanding of men's role in the world can be beneficial to young men. It encourages them to go to the gym, to develop skills, to make more money. It encourages them to become something. When men first dig into red pill ideologies, it is usually the first time they are ever told that in order to attract a woman, they actually have to prioritize themselves first. Men have an innate inclination to give of themselves to a woman they are attracted to, but that usually comes before they even have anything to offer. I often think of that scene from Spider-Man 2, where Peter Parker is using the last bit of money in his pocket in order to buy Mary Jane some flowers rather than pay his own rent. That's the kind of thing a lot of men do in order to try and keep a woman around. And the problem here is that eventually men run out of things to give women. How many times have you heard a woman say some variation of, "Don't introduce me to a vibe you can't maintain"? That is exactly what a lot of these men are doing, which is introducing a woman to a lifestyle which is unsustainable. And then the men wonder why women get bored and leave. Understanding very simple lessons like this and acting on them correctly will benefit both men and women in the long run. Men will become more attractive to women. Women will have a larger selection of attractive men to choose from. She then goes on to read an anonymous Twitter user's response to this post as if it's an accurate representation of how all men think. This is something she does consistently throughout this video, which is she takes screenshots of a bunch of anonymous edgelords on Twitter and then likes to pretend that they are somehow the spokesman for the male gender. Even if the post itself gets 0 engagement, she will still use it as an example to lump us all together. She's insane. But screw it. I'll bite. Why not? Let's get into this.
I want to make this very clear. Young men have nothing. Literally, we have nothing. No future prospects, most don't have skills, most don't have partners, all for reasons outside of our control. All we had was our hobbies, and we couldn't even be left alone to have that. And then for years, all our lives, from every institution, every piece of pop culture, the message has been beaten into us that we are the root of evil, that we are irredeemable and privileged. The only escape was the pop culture of the past, where we weren't hated, but even there, we had no refuge. And now we're given the opportunity, finally, many of us for the first time, to maybe, just maybe, get a future, get peace. And you tell us that we're radicalized? Most men are really, really low maintenance. We really don't need much at all. Just a hug now and then, a hobby, a challenge. To be left alone most of the time is more than enough for the vast majority of men. But that was too much to ask for. Are you kidding? Are you fucking kidding me right now? We have nothing, no future prospects, most don't have skills, and most don't have partners, all for reasons outside of our control. None of that is true. Not a single word of that statement is true. Like, why do you not have future prospects? Like, men are still, in the majority of people, in like high-paying roles. They are still in the majority of people who are like CEOs and like in high up positions, like that is still a majority of men. They still dominate so many industries and are more likely to get hired and get promotions, etc. If you have no future prospects, that is because you have not done enough to get there. You know, like you have to work harder now because there are more women who are competition. A lot of women are studying. More women are studying. More women are going for PhDs. More women are like working harder to get better jobs and higher paid jobs, promotions, etc. So really what you're saying is that you have more competition, but you don't want to work harder. Women have had to work so much harder to get there, and you aren't willing to put in even a little bit more effort because you just want it to be handed to you. That's what I'm getting from this. You don't have skills. Whose fault is that? Go out and learn some fucking skills, bro. We're in the same position as you. We go to school together. We live in the same society as you. If I have skills, it's because I've taken the time to learn the skills. All you have to do is the same thing. What do you mean that's out of your control? How is this anyone else's fault but your own?
Yeah, chuckle it up, retard. I think what he's saying is that women have been artificially boosted into careers they did not earn due to DEI incentives from firms like BlackRock and Vanguard, which actively work against you if you are a straight white man. I love how on one hand she says that women have had to work harder than men, while on the other hand saying that men just have to do the same things as women in order to get where they are, while also putting up a statistic that blatantly states how women are more commonly employed part-time rather than full-time, because nothing says working harder than actively seeking out less hours at work. Savannah acts as though she doesn't understand that there are only a finite amount of job openings and college openings in the world, and so if more women are entering college and more women are entering the workforce, backed by companies to incentivize recruiting and enrolling women over men, men are going to have less prospects in the future, less chances to develop their careers, less chances to learn skills. It's really not that complicated. Also, let's attack that pop culture thing really quickly. She calls old films sexist, says that modern films are not attacking men because men on average have more screen time than women, as if those two things are correlated at all, and then says that even if men are being belittled in movies and TV shows, men are fragile for caring.
And then going into saying the only place you can find solace is in like old media where you aren't hated. That's wild to me. That's wild to me. It's sitting here and acting as though women have no idea what it's like to exist in a world where we are belittled for our gender. That we have never experienced media where we are made fun of for our gender or like viewed as less than for our gender. We don't know what it's like to have like media that is not centered around us, because women are always the main characters. All TV shows and movies these days are just focused on women, and they're all just showing man-hating. Bro, give me your list of movies and TV shows. Can I watch them? Because like, still, to my knowledge, as far as I am aware and can see with my eyes that exist in the same world as you, men are still dominating the media. Most films and TV shows are still very centered around men, and women are still side characters. There is not that much that exists where you are being belittled and made fun of for your gender and being like torn into and torn down. But you're just making shit up. If just getting a fraction of what women have been experiencing for centuries is causing you to be radicalized to the right and red pill, that is entirely on you. Like, you are so fragile. These men are so fragile that all it takes is to not be the main character for 5 seconds and suddenly women are the enemy.
Literally anything Disney has made in the last several years. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Marvel, all the various spin-off shows and movies, these franchises, which in their prime were geared and targeted towards men, have now been consistently belittling male characters for years. Look no further than the Loki series, where, yes, there were more male characters than female characters, but the female characters constantly dominate and humiliate the male characters throughout the entire show. Either Savannah hasn't seen these movies or TV shows, in which case that begs a much deeper question, what is even the point of Disney pandering to people like this if they don't see it? Or she is blatantly lying. We have all noticed the rise of the edgy girl boss trope in entertainment media, especially within the last 4 years, and if you haven't noticed it, you're just willfully blind. Savannah has a really difficult time being logically consistent throughout this video, and a good example of this is in the next part. Allow me to set the scene. You basically have one Twitter user saying that women desire to hold their men while crying, and then you have Count Dankula, of all people. Remember the Nazi pug guy of 2017? Yeah, so you have Count Dankula saying that a lot of men have experienced the situation where when they cry in front of a woman, the woman gets the ick and loses respect for them. Now, what does Savannah say about all of this? Well, ironically, she says this.
You are correcting a woman on her own desires. The initial tweet was stating that this image, because the text was on an image, had been saved to a lot of women's Pinterest boards. And she said with it, girls are saving this image to their Pinterest and you're blackpilling. And then the guy quote tweeting it, blackpilling, it's so funny. Like, bro, women are literally out here saying they want to date men who are in touch with their emotions and who will be vulnerable. And you're here being like, liar. You're a liar. All of these women are lying. Do not cry in front of them. They will use it again. Source. Where are you getting this from? Like, I'm sorry if this has happened to you in the past. Some people suck. True. You were dating a bad person. Most people, and like all good people, are not weaponizing your emotions against you.
What makes this so funny to me is she's going to bring up the most extreme cases of men being awful to women and then implies that these are somehow representative of how all men are behaving towards women. But here's an example of a guy saying that this is a common trend he has noticed among women. And her defense is, well, you're just dating a shitty person. Oh, got it. Really? I didn't fucking think of that. Women are all individuals, and when a woman treats a man like shit, it's just a one-off scenario. But when a man treats a woman like shit, well, that's actually representative of the majority of how men are. This is a glaring double standard. Her entire premise for this video is that some men are awful. And so that means women are justified in being cautious of men. But then when a man who has experienced an awful woman tells other men to be cautious of women, source? Well, you were just dating a bad person. Maybe try not dating bad people. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. Couldn't have figured that one out without you. She then gets mad that men are listening to other men about dating advice rather than listening to women. And this to me doesn't make much sense. Sure, on the face of it, I can see where she's coming from. If a man wants to date a woman, he should listen to what women want. True, that makes sense. However, then why is it bad to listen to men's advice as well? To my knowledge, more men have had experience dating women than most women do. If a bunch of guys who are experienced in dating women collectively tell me that, hey, yeah, we've noticed a negative reaction to certain things like crying in front of your woman, how then is that a bad advice to listen to? Maybe there are some women out there that don't mind seeing their men cry in front of them. Sure. However, if the majority of men collectively say that in their own personal experience, women have responded negatively to seeing men cry, I would almost see it as stupid not to listen to that advice. Now, the next thing that Savannah is going to talk about is an obviously fake story from Reddit, but she believes it 100%. Uploaded in the r/offmychest subreddit, the author says that her nudes were distributed by her ex-boyfriend to their mutual co-workers because they both worked in the same company. Now, this part isn't the unbelievable part. We'll get into that. He apparently made them into Pokemon-style trading cards with different powers and health points. The ex-boyfriend supposedly made 5,000 copies and then traded them with even management and other branches of the business. Now, if this was real, it would be a massive scandal and it would be all over the news. This woman would be awarded stupid amounts of money in damages. But without any evidence of this story ever taking place, Savannah believes it and uses it as an example for why women are worried about dating men.
They do this shit with countless men involved and then sit back and will say, why are less women dating men? Why aren't women dating men anymore? Why aren't they giving us the love and attention that we want? Because you pull bullshit like this. And like, we have to sit here and imagine the most vile shit that a man can do, and they still go beyond that and do stuff that would never cross our minds in a million years. Like, who does this? Who thinks of this? It would never cross my mind as a possibility. Seeing shit like this happen and like seeing how many people get involved and then acting like it's a mystery that women don't want to be involved with men, like, be so for real. Like, this is the shit we have to put up with. This is the shit we have to consider. And sure, it's not all men, but it's a fucking enough of them. This was happening in a place of work. I guarantee you everyone there knew it was taking place. And even if they weren't involved, none of them said anything. And she works in car sales, which is very male heavy. And so none of the men were calling each other on the bullshit. Most of them were involved. No one was telling her, and this was going on for years. I wonder why men are sitting alone and unable to find partners when this is what the men we love and trust are doing to us. How are we meant to know who is safe? Like, she obviously never expected this to be something he would do. But how are we meant to know who it is? And even if they're not ones who are going to participate in this, standing by and not saying anything, I don't want to be around you either. So it's not all of them, but how the fuck are we supposed to know?
3 things here. 1, there is no proof that the story is even real. And the fact that she used it as an example shows just how much she is willing to reach in order to justify her hatred of men. She is willing to believe an anonymous post on Reddit, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, in so long as it validates her preconceived prejudice against men. Now, I don't know too much about Savannah, but I do know that she is a 25-year-old woman. It would make sense for this to be said by some angsty teenage girl going through a breakup, but for a grown woman to act like this is both pathetic and sad. It almost comes across as a coping mechanism. It's like she needs men to be this evil in order to validate her irrational hatred of them. Or else she would then have to grapple with the uncomfortable reality that she is the problem. Number 2, there was recently someone exposed for sharing intimate photos and videos of people with others non-consensually. And wouldn't you know it, he was the furthest possible thing from a far-right Andrew Tate viewer. The guy's name was Stephen Bennell, known by many on this platform and in the online political realm as Destiny. Savannah spent a large portion of this video talking about how awful far-right men are. But the king liberal himself is currently caught up in 2 lawsuits of this exact type of crime she's complaining about, which I just find extremely ironic. And the last thing I want to say before we move on here is that I really want you to take in the fact that when Count Dankula, who, by the way, is a public figure, you can look him up and you can see his real name and his real face, says that he has experienced women responding negatively to men crying in front of them, she brushes that off as just terrible people being terrible people. But when an anonymous Reddit user uploads a completely extraordinary, probably fake, unverifiable story about a circumstance that very few people will ever relate to, she uses it as a prime example for why women are justified in hating men. Savannah just disregards any issues men face and amplifies all issues women are facing, even if they are probably fake. Now, the next story that Savannah brings up is the murder of Jennifer Sheffield, who was killed by her ex-husband after she filed for a divorce. A TikTok video surfaced after her death where she was talking about the divorce and how she said that her husband had been taking the divorce well, and then she proceeded to ask advice from her audience on how to make money and save money because she would be living on a tight budget. Savannah then also highlights the reaction to this story on Twitter, where some men in the comments were saying things that seemed to be putting the blame on Jennifer, essentially saying that if she wanted to live, she shouldn't have filed for divorce.
And there are so many replies that are blaming her. They read, "She is the problem. Sorry he had to go through this. This is how you fix marriage. Bring back consequences. Her video is giving, the man I had was amazing, but I got bored. Probably because she made a video. Keep your business off the streets and at home. The whole purpose of that video was to ask how to earn money. She probably wanted a divorce so she could start OnlyFans. Divorce for fun sounds good until you realize some people take their vows seriously. Then shit really gets crazy. So consider this. Don't divorce just for fun. But hey, I'm simply here to ask the logical and relevant question that no one has ever asked. What is your life worth? Women will not accept accountability. Women also initiate 75% of divorces. Are there men who are abusive and cheat on their wives? Certainly, and I have no sympathy for them. But the women who initiate divorce because they're unhappy is a cop-out, and probably are listening to their single friends. Women are women's worst enemy, not men. These replies were one after another, and they kept going. There were so many of these replies, and it is beyond sickening that so many men can share the view of this being her fault.
Now, it should go without saying that I don't agree with these tweets. I obviously don't think men should be crashing out so badly after a divorce that they kill their ex-wife and self-delete. Jennifer did not deserve to die. That should go without saying. However, after hearing Savannah talk about this situation, I realized there's a bit more nuance here to discuss.
They had a kid, and then he killed her, and he killed himself, and he left their child parentless, all because she was taking action to ensure her own sanity, her own happiness, and because their marriage wasn't working. I don't know the details or the specifics of what was going on in their marriage, but that doesn't matter. But you know, how dare she make that decision to leave? How dare she do something that benefits her and might have a negative impact on him, despite her likely having been in a bad state of mind because of him for a really long time? How dare she make a decision that is so selfish?
So Savannah admittedly doesn't know anything about this relationship one way or the other, yet for some reason just randomly suggests that Jennifer's ex-husband had been causing Jennifer to lose her sanity for a long time, essentially blaming him for the divorce. Now, this may or may not be true. I can't tell you one way or another, but what I can tell you is that Savannah just made it up. She just made up this accusation. Look, I have no sympathy for Jennifer's ex-husband. I hope he's rotting in hell right now, frankly. Not only did he murder someone, he then left their child parentless, so he isn't getting pity points from me. I just find it very interesting that Savannah once again has to paint a picture that it's always the men's fault and never the woman's fault. There is no evidence that this guy was psychologically abusing her or anything of the sort, yet Savannah just has to throw that in there as if the original story wasn't bad enough. Savannah already said that it doesn't matter to her what the details of the relationship were. Had Jennifer have just left this guy, even if he didn't do anything wrong, Savannah would still see it as justifiable. Two things can be true simultaneously. Jennifer did not deserve to die for filing for a divorce, obviously. However, marriage is a lifelong commitment that you shouldn't just throw away because you're feeling a bit unhappy. Today, purely based on statistics, most women do not seem to take their vows very seriously at all anymore. I can understand if you are being cheated on. I can understand if you are being physically abused. Hell, I can even understand if you are taking care of a bum dude who just sits at home all day. You have to take care of him, the child, and the home. Yeah, I can understand that. But to divorce a good partner simply because you just aren't happy, that is extremely selfish. If you are unhappy, there are other things that can be done to remedy that issue, which don't involve ruining your family. A lot of the time, people get unhappy due to things external to their relationship, yet they blame that unhappiness on their relationship and they choose to terminate it. Sometimes it's because of the mundanity of modern life. You get up, you eat, you go to work, you get home, you eat, you go to bed, you get up again to do it the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, and so on, etc. Sometimes it's an internal battle of feeling like you wish you had done something different with your life, pursued a different career, moved to a different city, or even pursued a different relationship. Or maybe simply it's that you haven't taken care of your physical needs, like socializing outside of your relationship, or exercising, or maybe you've just eaten like a slob for the last few years. Either way, those are struggles that, at least in my book, don't justify the termination of a marriage and the destruction of a family unit. A marriage is a commitment to stay together, even if there are better options out there, even if you do get a little sad from time to time. even if you do wish you had a little more free time to go bar hopping with your single friends on the weekends. Because at the end of the day, in your worst moments, you will feel a lot better knowing that you have at least your children, and you have your extended family, and you have your partner who is committed to loving you and caring for you to the best of their ability, rather than being single in a one-bedroom apartment surrounded by a few cats and a Tinder profile.
Of not being happy and doing something about it is worth your life. Like, she deserved it because she decided to do something for her own happiness. And then, like, the people going in there and being like, she asked how to make money, she probably got a divorce so she could start an OnlyFans. How are you so sick and twisted that is how you view women? She got a divorce so she could do sex work. That was her motivation, because all women want to do sex work. That's in our nature. That's what we all want to do. And she deserved to be killed for it. How do people even begin to have this mindset? How is this the reality that we live in, where people think that this is justifiable behavior? You should be able to get a divorce without fearing for your life. This shit happens way too often. Like, way too often. Men hate not being in control. They hate not having the power, and they hate being rejected to the point where they will literally kill people because they had the audacity to say no to them.
I think the issue wasn't that she said no to him. I think the issue is that she said yes to him first, became his wife, said that she would love him forever, and then ended the relationship for seemingly no fault of his own. Does that justify murder? No. But it's amazing how many details that Savannah will just gloss over in order to make women appear totally innocent at all times. If Savannah is unwilling to list any situation at all where getting a divorce would be viewed as unacceptable, there is no point in having a conversation. She thinks that women are justified in literally any action they take at all times. Obviously, murder is not the answer, but can we at least be honest and say that women leaving their husbands for little to no reason should at least be frowned upon by society? Your vows should matter to you because your vows are your word. Never mind the fact that you're saying it in front of God and the nation, you should also just not want to be seen as an untrustworthy person. If you say, in sickness and in health, till death do us part, yada yada yada, to someone you're supposed to love forever, you should fucking mean it, not just leave the moment you realize that marriage can be difficult. Because if you can just end your marriage whenever you feel like it, then there is no point in getting married to begin with. All the things that you can do after a marriage, you can do before a marriage. Why then go through all the headache of buying the rings, having an overpriced ceremony, having to invite and deal with those obscure family members that you never talk to maybe once in every 10 years? If one of the parties can just simply pack their bags one day and say, hey man, it's been real, but I'm not feeling it anymore. Deuces. Fuck, at that point, I don't even see why we would bother fighting for traditional marriage. Go ahead and give it to the gays. I mean, marriage is just meaningless now anyways. Also, you gotta love the constant generalizing of men. One man kills his ex-wife, and now it's men will literally kill you for rejecting them. For starters, her saying that women are not choosing men to date is already just false, as we already discussed. But if I were to even grant her that, I would find it very difficult to believe that women are choosing not to date men because men are violent. After how many women I saw swooning over the likes of Luigi Mangione, I will never believe that, not in a million years. What, because he didn't kill a woman, that means he's actually one of those, safe murderers? Well, I guess that makes you a fucking retard, doesn't it? Now, to be fair to Savannah here, I gotta admit, I couldn't find her glorifying this guy and what he did, but I saw a lot of women do it. So I guess that means by her logic, then I can just simply chalk that up to being representative of all women, right? The last thing I want to say here is that it became clear to me throughout this video that not even Savannah really believes what she's saying in this video, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But first, I want you to watch this last clip and tell me if her attitude comes across to you as how someone would behave while criticizing someone they are afraid of.
They continue this, and they continue to abuse women, and then wonder why more women are making the decision not to date them. I regularly receive DMs and comments from men yelling at me for being a misandrist and a man hater. And like, yeah, that is true. And they call me counterproductive, but like, you know what? How can I not be when this is what men bring to the table?
She is actually grinning and smirking over stating that she is a misandrist and that she hates men. Good for her. But if she was actually afraid of men, she would never have posted this video, because she'd be in fear that a man might see it one day and beat the fuck out of her for saying the things that she said. The grand irony here is that she knows men aren't going to do anything. She feels completely comfortable going online with her face and her name, shaming men, belittling men, justifying hatred of men, and yet she wants us to believe that she is afraid of men. Newsflash, this is not the attitude of someone who is afraid. This is the attitude of a pampered first world woman who wants to virtue signal online about how murdering your ex-wife is bad.
I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
At some point in the video, she says that she will stop being a misandrist when she can walk down the street without being in fear of men.
When I am not afraid to go out alone at night, when I don't fear being the only woman in the room, when I don't have to go through a mental checklist about every single man that I encounter, when I can feel safe and secure, then maybe I'll stop. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Bitch, you do realize that men are 3 times as likely to be the victims of other men than women are? Do you think that I have the luxury of walking downtown by myself at night without even the slightest fear of being mugged or beaten? Obviously not. Do I want to live in a perfect society where bad people don't exist? Certainly. But that isn't going to happen. She is clearly just playing to her audience of spiteful, bitter women. I highly doubt that murderers and sex pests are going to watch this video and come to some great realization that, oh, doing all of that was actually wrong. They already know that what they are doing is wrong. We already know that what they are doing is wrong. PSA, everyone, rape and murder is bad. Now, I'm not saying that she should be afraid of men. In fact, I need to make that very clear. I don't think she should be. But what I am saying is that she is clearly using this vague idea of female fear as validation for her giddiness over seeing men's problems. She wants to gloat and rub it in our faces that women aren't dating men anymore. But that is because she just simply hates men. She enjoys when she sees men struggling. But in order to do that gloating while still maintaining some semblance of a moral authority, she has to wrap it up neatly in a narrative that women are the constant and perpetual victims who do nothing wrong ever. Yes, in many cases, women are the victims, but in many other cases, men are the victims. The amount of men that find out years after raising a child that the child isn't actually their own is terrifying. The amount of men that get accused of crimes they didn't commit only to have their entire lives destroyed because of the simple allegation, because of women like this that will believe any and all allegations against a man, is terrifying. But does that mean that men should start believing that those individual cases are representative of all women? I know a lot of men that have, and they have decided to completely check out of dating entirely. But should we encourage that line of thinking? In conclusion, all women hate men. I know this is the case because this one woman in this video does, and that must mean this is how they all think. No. Obviously, that is a joke. That is a bit of hyperbole, if you will. Just because some people say and do things that are awful doesn't mean that that is representative of that entire group as a whole. I know I'm not saying anything necessarily profound by saying that. I actually don't mind criticizing groups and other people criticizing groups when discussing societal trends and politics. I kind of understand that there is oftentimes no way around that. But this has to be the most bad faith interpretation of men I have ever seen. Most men are not writing paragraphs justifying rape. Most men are not, writing paragraphs justifying murdering their ex-wives. Most men are not printing out their ex-girlfriend's naughty pictures and sharing them around like trading cards. Also, how many of those guys posting that stuff to Twitter do you think actually believed what they were saying? Versus how many of them do you think were just being edgy and provocative because they were speaking online and wanted attention? I'm sure we're all innocent of doing that, right? Yes, some men are terrible people, But saying things like men are the cause of their own downfall, men have set the standard, is extremely disrespectful to the vast majority of men who have, at the worst, made crude jokes and are, at the best, hardworking family men trying to take care of their loved ones. There is a wide spectrum of men that are experiencing loneliness right now, but the majority of them are young men in their 30s who have done nothing wrong, but still have little to show for it, because they are lost. What they need are male mentors which guide them and encourage them to do better, not spiteful multicolored haired feminists mocking them and blaming them for all of society's ills, because that's the kind of stuff that has been the real force behind the radicalization of young men, not Andrew Tate. Anyways, that is going to do it for me in this video. If you agreed with anything I said, don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to tell me what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.